Thanks for clicking on to the Sunday evening edition of Vogan's European Outlook. Some interesting sightings this afternoon across, I think particularly the north of Scotland, but I don't know if it's exclusively. Nacreous clouds or polar stratospheric clouds was seen and captured today. I did see a couple late this evening, just before or just slightly after sunset, actually. And what are these clouds? It's actually, I say polar stratospheric clouds. Basically, you get the gist of it right away when I say that. But it's basically clouds within the stratosphere that are visible when the polar vortex is actually almost directly overhead. So when you've got the core of the vortex, even at 10 millibars overhead, these clouds can become seen and visible from the ground. And there are stunning clouds actually, because they're multicolored, and it's to do with the extremely cold environment that they're within. So it's actually moisture within this layer of the atmosphere that, of course, produces the cloud in the first place. But the various layers or various colors within the cloud, I believe anyway, is to do with the ice particles and whatnot. I don't know the full ins and outs of it, but this was the scene over Aberdeenshire this afternoon, or even it looks as if it was actually kind of late afternoon in the picture here. Great pictures here from June Wills of these amazing clouds, and I did capture a couple myself, but they're nowhere near as dramatic as some of the photographs that I've seen. This was from Edmonton late this afternoon. Like I said, they don't really look like anything particularly special in the picture, to be honest with you. But this is the current situation here at 10 millibars, and as you can see here, this displaced polar vortex is almost centered directly over the UK, hence why we're seeing these clouds. And we'll probably see more sightings of these if the conditions are right, and with the vortex almost directly overhead. Now you notice here off the GFS, by the time we reach midnight tonight, we actually have a core temperature within the stratosphere of minus 91 Celsius. And of course, when you've got that directly overhead, you see these clouds. But pretty interesting stuff. It was something that I highlighted last week, that the potential of seeing these clouds was increased because the vortex was getting displaced almost directly over the British Isles. But you notice here that the core is just to the west, out over the North Atlantic here. And of course, we've got the reason for this is this very strong pulse of warming away out over the Asia side of the pole here that is forcing the displacement over us. So let's play the latest run and see what takes place here. So we remain with this vortex largely intact throughout the entire run. If you notice here, it just kind of spirals away on our side of the pole. And unfortunately, folks, that is not a great sign in terms of seeing cold conditions developing across the British Isles in the longer term. That being said, however, it doesn't necessarily mean that we can't get a cold pattern. I do think that with regards to the Mann-Julian oscillation and other atmospheric drivers, I think the possibility does increase during the second half of the month. But really the details is yet to be decided here and determined. Let's look at the 70 millibar level. So that's right down into more the tropospheric level, and see what it's showing. So this is the current situation here. We've got an area of strong warming up over the northern portion of North America, and also we're seeing that warming across the east coast of Asia as well. Notice here the core of the polar vortex here is centered over Scandinavia, and really, in a sense, this situation really favors North America in terms of delivering the coldest air within the hemisphere. We've lost it now over Siberia, and the focus, I believe, is going to be over Canada and into the United States over the next week to 10 days or so. But if you notice here that really what you want to see is strong warming take place more towards Greenland as opposed to North America, because with this setup here, that tends to promote more of a positive North Atlantic oscillation. We increase the gradient in temperature over North America. That drives a stronger jet stream, over the North Atlantic and into the British Isles. The caveat, the problem that we have, is that the Azores high is quite strong at the moment, and therefore that is sending the storm track further north. Hence, we're in the slightly milder regime overall. But if we look here at the 10, this is the 850 millibar temperature chart here, and you can see what's taking place here. So we're now focusing the cold out of Asia towards North America. As we play through this loop, what we eventually see happening is we see the core of coldest air actually over Hudson Bay by the time we reach early this upcoming work week. And what eventually happens is, with some strong warming taking place and blocking over the top, we eventually start to see the core of coldest air anywhere in the planet dropping south over Ontario, Quebec, and into the northeastern half of the United States. And some of the models are now starting to hone in on a tropospheric polar vortex outbreak into the United States. Watch very, very carefully what takes place with this core here. This piece of the vortex drops south into the northeastern United States, and we're seeing temperatures at 850 of minus 40 Celsius, so 5,000 feet above the ground. We've got air at minus 40 over the northeastern half of the United States here. So we need to watch this very carefully. We could be looking at some tremendous cold. Historic cold potential is on the table by the time we reach the end of the week and then the next weekend here. Still a wee bit out, so there's still opportunity for the models to back off this idea. But all in all, it looks as if with strong blocking over North America, over eastern portions of Asia, like I say, this is focusing the prospects of cold into North America and not so much over Europe here. What also needs to be taken into consideration is that we have an Atlantic driven pattern for the foreseeable actually. What we also could find is the core of cold drops south, and then that sets off all sorts of interesting things, because we've got, of course, mild trying to push north, we've got cold pushing south. We increase the strength of the jet, but we also could start to change the amplification of the pattern. All it takes is to get a little bit of a northward surge over the Atlantic, and we drop Arctic air into the British Isles here. So all in all, despite the fact that we favour the cold, the focus of the cold is over North America, that doesn't mean that if we start to kind of flick that like a skipping rope, we start to kind of wobble it around, pieces of warmth gets lifted north, Arctic air gets forced south, and we've got a very, very interesting overall pattern, I think. So look at this here. By the time we reach, this is Monday the 6th of February, still a long way out, but that's that core of cold exiting North America. That forces some very mild air up into the British Isles, but watch this space. It doesn't take an awful lot for that to sweep across the UK. So a zonal unsettled pattern, but we could start to see a colder and colder pattern when you flood North America with cold air. These areas of low pressure, all it takes is to shift the storm track a little bit further south, and some of the models are indicating that. And therefore we have all sorts of interesting things that goes on. We could increase the chances of seeing snow, for example, not just across the north of the UK, but also across areas further south also with this type of situation here. So that's all to play for. Lots of interesting things going on at the moment here, and that is why I encourage you to stay here on my YouTube channel, showing you not just why not just because it's going to be windy or wet or snowy or cold or warm. I'm showing you the hemispheric view and explaining to you the origins of why the weather happens here in the UK the way it does. So if you haven't already done so, please hit that subscribe button. I do appreciate the support. I do appreciate the comments. I do read every one of them. I may not respond to every one of them, but it is appreciated, the view that you give me. And, it's the weather at this time of the year is the most fascinating, I think, generally speaking. Notice here as we continue to play through the loop, by the way, look at how the cold air is getting forced further and further south over the North Atlantic here. So that's what I'm talking about. At this moment in time, we have got a strong Azores area of high pressure. So the upcoming 7-day period, the core of coldest air anywhere on the planet over Hudson Bay, we're going to see a spoke of the vortex getting dropped south. There's all the blocking over the top, forcing the cold south. But notice here on our side of the Atlantic, we've got a stronger than normal Azores high pressure system further north compared to normal. So therefore, in between the blue and the reds, that's where your storm track is at the moment here. So we've got glancing blows across the northern half of the British Isles. By the time we reach the 8 to 14 day of the CFSV2, we've got strong blocking, but it's over the wrong side of the Atlantic here, or the Arctic region. So to say, we've got a stronger Icelandic trough now, and we've got a strong European ridge. So that's a very strong positive North Atlantic oscillation signal. And even if we have this setup, it doesn't necessarily mean that we can't have cold areas of low pressure, bringing the chances of snow across parts of the British Isles here. So we need to watch this space with regards to that. And going back to the 70 millibar level here with the polar vortex situation, let's have a look at 168 hours. And you can see here that we are seeing some of that warming, that this would represent a mirror at 500 millibars blocking. What we want to see is blocking further and further east over the North Atlantic to try and shut down the pattern and try and pull in some colder conditions from either the north or the northeast. Going all the way out to 240 hours at 70 millibars, you can see here that we've got this area of blocking. But to me, even if we get a negative North Atlantic oscillation, it's more of a west-based, and that, again, doesn't necessarily be favourable. But let's remember that these models struggle with stratospheric warming events. It is a minor, it's not a major, but that does not mean that we can't get a cold pattern with a minor sudden stratospheric warming. And of course, we need to watch the behaviour of the Madden-Julian oscillation as well. So this is the latest run of the GFS. This is the overview chart. We've got the strong area of high pressure. But notice it's not stretching all the way into the British Isles. So we've got this colder northwesterly flow. And I've noticed the temperature here at my house is dropping quite continuously here. Now it's down to 3.9 Celsius and wind chill of 1.8 Celsius. Looking at the pressure chart here, we had an area of low pressure pass the north during the course of today. Ahead of that system, we had west to southwesterly winds, warm conditions. Then as we play it through the loop, you notice here that as the system passes to the north of Scotland, we're pulling our winds in from a northwesterly direction. And then if you look at the temperature profile, you can see here where we started and now where we're at. So we'll play back through the sequence here. You can see here that we had temperatures 11, 12 Celsius during the late morning into the early portion of the afternoon. You can see here 12 quite widely. And then as we play through the loop and the winds come in from a more northwesterly direction, these are the temperatures as of recording here. So we've seen that sharp rise and sharp decrease through the course of today. And if we go back to the right chart, you can see what happens over the next few days. That system exits to the east. We've got another deep area of low pressure approaching Iceland. With that area of high pressure close by, then we have got milder air coming back in. So we see this up and down temperature profile across the UK. Ahead of systems it turns milder, behind systems it turns colder. Then we'll have an area of high pressure that tries to build into the British Isles towards next weekend here. And then if you notice as we play it through the loop, areas of low pressure eventually start to take more of a southerly track here as the situation changes over North America. It's like a downstream change, which therefore starts to send areas of low pressure a little bit further south. And then that will have a different impact on the British Isles here overall. So we'll have a wee look in the next day or so at the potential snow prospects with this type of pattern. But all in all, there's a lot of things going on at the moment. So like I've already said, keep it right here on my YouTube channel. We'll watch this space. Interesting forecast for February coming up in the next day or so. So stay tuned for that on markloganweather.com. And I'll see you again hopefully tomorrow with more. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening. Bye for now.